Okay everyone, so now we're back in Lightroom here, and these are the images that we just took out in the field. You can see this is the first shot where we had no flash, just to show what was going on with the scene. You can see the background is exposed properly, but as I mentioned out there, you have the issue with the car. All the dark spots really go very dark. The wheels are almost completely black. And it's just really underexposed. The foreground, the asphalt looks good, the sky looks good, but in here you just have the problem. So here is the first shot that we took where the flash was aimed at the rear quarter panel. Then you can see we had the close-up for the wheels. We're way too hot in here. We had the front wheel, we had the front of the car, and a little bit of the hood. And then this is the other side of the hood. And then finally we had the grill. So we're not going to do anything in Lightroom right now. What we're going to do is we're going to click on this first photo, click on this last one. We're going to right click, and then we're going to go to edit in, and then all the way down here we want to open as layers in Photoshop. So we'll click that. Okay, here we are in Photoshop now that everything has loaded. As you can see, what it's done is it's put all of those images in a stack. It made them individual layers in one Photoshop document. So the first thing we want to do is let's click on this top layer. Let's shift click on the bottom layer to select them all. Then let's go up to edit and then auto align layers. What this is going to do is, even though we were on a tripod, we might have got some shifting in the camera because we kept going back and hitting the shutter button. And so what Photoshop will do is it will go through and analyze the image, and it will align any of those small variations. So the first thing that I want to do is I actually want to rearrange the layers here. I actually want to go in order of what we shot, so the smallest number to the biggest. So I'm going to bring basically all of these in reverse order. That way we can just work the same way that we shot the images. And I like to work that way, so it just makes more sense for me. So then we'll turn off these top layers. And as you can see, we have the bottom layer, and then we have the back quarter panel. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a mask on this layer here. So we're going to hit Alt or Option and then click the layer mask to make a black mask. So we're going to grab a brush tool, the shortcut's B. We're going to make sure white is the foreground color. We want 100% flow right now, and we want to make sure our hardness is 0. We want to be able to blend this. So if we remember what we shot, this is just the rear quarter. So we want to just kind of paint that in, and you'll start seeing the difference right away. And so we'll go over this part of the car just to where we stop seeing a difference. And as you can see, as we get up to the front, the exposure is the same. So we know we don't necessarily need to paint over that. We want to keep the windshield pretty dark, so we're going to mask that back off. Maybe we'll zoom in some and get that pillar there. Make sure that's nice and bright. All right, so that is our first layer. If we click on and off, you can see what we did. The next layer, this is going to be our wheel layer. So again, we're going to click on that layer. We're going to click Option or Alt and click the layer mask to make another black mask. And with our same brush tool, we're just going to paint over this rear wheel. And now if you see down here, this is something that we don't want on both sides. So you can see I was a little sloppy with the mask there and there. So we're going to switch colors. The quick shortcut key for that is X. If you watch over here, when I click X, it toggles between those two colors. So we want black because we want to hide this little spot here where we messed up. So we'll come in and we'll just paint that out. And here's what we look like before and after. Now we're going to go up to the next layer. Again, we want that front wheel. This area is probably too bright. We don't want to paint any of that in. So we're going to, again, Option or Alt click this button here, make a black layer mask. Still with our brush selected, we're going to switch back to white, and we're going to come in here and paint just the wheel. And I got a little bit outside of the line there. So there's that. Again, before and after. We click on the next layer. This we're going to affect in here and probably a little bit up on the hood. So let's click off that. Same brush selected. Make sure white is our foreground color. And we'll go in here and just paint this. And again, we don't want to get it on the window, and we probably want to come in here and feather these two. Let's go over here and see what we have. Make the brush small and try to capture this highlight right on this hood here. All right, and that's probably what we're going to get out of that one. Again, before and after. I think I might brush some of that back off of this area here. So maybe lower the opacity a little bit just to kind of feather that in. Black brush. Maybe bring it down just a little bit. See if we can get a nice transition here. I think that looks a little bit better. All right, now we have, oh, and it looks like one of our layers didn't come in, so we'll need to go and get that in just a second. So let's hit Option and Alt, click on here. Again, with our brush and the white brush, let's just go and paint up here on the hood. Good there. Let's go back over to Lightroom. For whatever reason, this one did not come through. Edit in. All right, so we have this image open. We're gonna hit the V tool, which is your move tool. We're gonna click here, and we're just gonna pull this over to this image right here. And now good, if you don't wanna go through and do auto align, one thing that you can do to check and see if this layer is properly aligned is you can click on the blending mode down here called difference. And what that's going to do is anything that's different, it's going to highlight the color. So if it was 100% perfect, it would be all black. And you can see because we have a little bit of shadow difference, it's going to be just a little bit off. It looks pretty well aligned though. So I think we're good to go here. We can turn that back to normal. And then same thing as all of the other ones, Option and Alt, click the layer mask. With our brush tool, we're just going to go in here and we're going to paint in that grill in white. And let's put our opacity or our flow back up just to make sure we're painting 100%. And we'll just go in and paint the front of the car here. Same thing, I think we may have gone a little bit too far over here, so we'll just come back, leave that off. And so that is our basic merge. So let's grab our crop tool. Let's get rid of this little bit of white space around here. And then let's also turn this just a little bit so the car's a little bit more level. And then maybe give it a little bit better crop. So from here, we can make a stamp visible layer. And then let's go into our camera raw filter. And then let's adjust this a little bit more. So one thing that happened when I was out taking this series of shots is it was really cloudy and overcast, and it would have made for a really dramatic flash shot. But unfortunately, by the time I got everything set up, the sun had really come out, so the car doesn't pop off as much as I would like it to. I think it still looks really dramatic, and the effect that you get on the wheels and chiseling out a lot of these body lines, you wouldn't be able to do really without flash. But I think the car is still a little bit in shadow, so I think we can help that out here if we bring in the radial tool. Just get a nice big radial selection around the car. Actually, before we do that, I think it's good, and I always forget to do this, is just zero this out before. That way you don't have to spend time adjusting all of those previous settings. So let's just go into here. You can see we have a nice feather on this. We can probably bump the exposure up just a little bit. We're starting to get some highlight clipping in here. We don't want that, so we're going to pull back the highlight some. But then we're also going to open up the shadows a little bit and maybe even add in a little bit of clarity, and then maybe make the car a little bit warmer. And now we can do kind of the same thing up here. If we want to make the sky a little bit more dramatic, we can pull the blues down some, pull that exposure down a little bit. We don't need to protect the highlights, we don't need to protect those shadows. Clarity's okay, we can probably bring up saturation a little bit. And we can probably even bring up the contrast some. And then down here, kind of same deal. And actually, before I do that, I'm going to reset everything and then draw this out. And this we can probably bring the exposure down and maybe bring the saturation down just a little bit. From there, let's go over here and let's sharpen it up a little bit. Because we didn't do this in Lightroom previously, we'll just give it some sharpening, and I think we're pretty good. So let's click OK. And just a little bit of change. But overall, pretty happy with the results. I think we could do a couple more things if we wanted to. We can go through kind of my normal formula for editing. So again, if you watch any of my other videos, Nick Silver Effects Pro with that high structure selection gives a really nice black and white. In fact, this actually makes a really nice black and white with the flash on the car. Let's see what it looks like when we do kind of the normal retouching steps that I use and turn that to luminosity. I actually really like the colors here. I might pull that back just a little bit, but I like the blues. I like what it did. And in fact, I think that might be my final image. Actually, I want to do one more thing. Here's another thing that I actually really like to do, and it's in Color Effects Pro, and I think this image will be aided by this. So let's see what this looks like first. Ooh, that actually looks really cool too. And then let's go down here to, where is it? Darken, Lighten, Center. And then we'll just click on this to get a circular, and then we'll put the center point as right here, and we'll click OK. Boom. All right. So I think that is gonna be the final image. If we look at where we were, so let's make a stamped visible layer. Let's put all of this stuff in a group and turn that group off. You can see this is kind of what our first base shot looked like before we did any flash work. So if we just went out, took our camera, took a normal shot, this is kind of what we would be left with. And then this is what we're left with going through a couple steps and then doing that kind of single strobe kind of light painting effect. So I think a pretty dramatic difference. I think this really illustrates the power of what a strobe light will do. Now, I don't know that you would be able to do this with a speed light in the conditions that I was in. We were at full power with that flash. So a speed light isn't going to be able to do that. You would probably need to use a speed light more at dusk when it's a little bit darker out, so that flash doesn't have to overpower the sun as much. So just keep that in mind if you're trying a different lower powered flash. Mine is a 600 watt second, so it's a decent powered strobe unit. So just keep that in mind, but I hope that you guys have learned from this tutorial. I know that there's been a lot of questions about flash and you guys wanted to see a shot and a shoot put together with this, so hopefully that really answers those questions. If you have any comments, please leave them in the comment section down below. As always, appreciate the likes, and if you're not already, subscribe. I'm going to try to put out more videos on a regular basis, so at least a couple times a week. So until next time, take care.